Well, we're here today with another video that we wanted to sit down and talk with you, Doreen, and your relationship with John, in relation to him being a coach for you. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for sitting down with us.
No problem.
Really appreciates us.
Well, he's done so much for me over the few years that I've been with him that this is the least I can do.
The least you could do to pay him back, right? Just
Yes.
a little bit. And that's actually why we're here, is because of how much he's done for you over the years. And I'll tell you, like, for me, you know, I'm just meeting you now. And for a lot of our watchers, viewers that are watching this now, they're meeting you for the first time. But you guys have a relationship for a couple of years. And I think that that's really good. And that's what we're going to get into.
Okay.
All right. So let's take it all the way back to the beginning, Doreen. Tell us a little bit about you, like where you're from and when you started playing golf.
So from Yarmouth, I grew up on the Cape, and started playing golf when my husband, my ex-husband now, picked it up, and I was looking for something that the two of us could do together. So I took a few lessons on the sly, and then let him know that I was interested in playing with him. So
And he was already playing, right?
he was already playing. He'd only been playing for about a year or two.
Okay.
So
Okay, so it's pretty fresh.
yeah.
And then, like you said, you were looking to get into something, an activity with him, and so you decided to join up.
We tried other things, and he just wasn't working out. So I
Okay.
figured, man, this is a shot. Give it a shot.
And if you don't mind me asking, how long ago from today? How many years ago was that, or more recent? Like,
Oh God, that was 2000 maybe.
Okay.
1999.
Okay.
2000. Yeah,
Okay.
something like that.
So that's a good amount of time, and you're obviously still playing.
Right.
Obviously, see some development and growth since then. That's awesome to hear. Was there anything else that inspired you other than that, or was it just?
No, that was
let's just
that
get
was
into it.
the instigating factor.
Yeah.
Is just to have something to do.
Okay.
With my husband. So.
Okay. All right. That's interesting to hear. I think of some of the other interviews we've done before, to hear that, to get into, and then to stick with it for so long. I think that's
Right.
that's awesome.
Well, yeah, it's the why. And then, but unfortunately, I found I didn't like playing with him.
Okay.
We didn't last, obviously. That's, but when I met my current husband, he played a lot, and he'd been playing since he was 19, 20 years old.
Okay.
Part of his job, that was taking people out on the course, schmoozing, and, as a salesperson, that's what you did back then. So, up until the point I met him, I had only been playing maybe 10 rounds a year. As after I met him, it was
Significant increase.
Indeed.
yes, that it was called balls to the walls golf.
Okay. All right.
I think the first year I was with him, I played upwards of 60 rounds.
Okay.
So, and now we play over 100, 120 a year.
Oh wow.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very okay. Let me ask you, yeah, because that's fantastic,
He's
right?
never met anybody that plays that long.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Whatever.
I'd love to get to that point, where yeah. Let me ask you this then. In terms of where how you got started, was there any other sports that got you in that you used to play beforehand, or this was like your first?
No,
would you
I
say?
played tennis. I was into tennis
Okay.
for quite a few years before I started the golf.
Okay.
So that was a lot to overcome because it's a little bit of a different swing with the golf ball than with the tennis ball. So,
Yeah.
You're reacting versus acting. That's
Yeah.
this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit, and there's a reason why I asked you that question. Okay, so let me ask you another. When you think about when you got started, right, and then where you are today, can you tell us a little bit about where you see maybe the biggest change in your game and the sport?
Definitely since in the last,
Really?
what is it, four years?
4 to
Maybe
5.
4 or 5 maybe since I've been coming to John. I mean, the first season was immediate. There was a big change.
Okay.
And then there was a little plateaus and I would come down and I would make a little step up. Every once in a couple of years there was not really any noticeable improvement.
Okay.
Kind of stagnated, but that was my own fault. I mean, we missed 1 year because of COVID.
Okay.
So, and then since then it's just, I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm on, and I feel like I'm
Really?
on a threshold. Like I'm just like ready to make the jump into that next level. And
Really?
yeah.
Okay, so wait. So before I get there,
Uh-huh.
let me come back a little bit, and I promise you, John, we're going to talk to you in a second. But Doreen's she's just great right now, and I love where we're going.
Trying to fill in her gap.
No, don't worry about it. She's got it. So tell me a little bit about what may have led you to John, right? Because you mentioned that in your first season you saw huge improvements,
Right.
And so I think that's remarkable. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I was, like I said, we play a lot. I wasn't putting in a lot of practice, and the practice that I was putting in wasn't quality. It wasn't geared toward getting. It was just like most people do. They go to the range and they just kind of hit ball after ball after ball. You're not really looking at where or the why of what you're doing or where you want to get to. It's just because you're not really putting it into a step-by-step process that's going to lead to improvement. So I finally decided, this is not working. I'm not getting anywhere doing it on my own. And I had lessons with here, there, and, with a few people. And for the most part, they didn't work out because they weren't listening to what I was saying. Okay. It's very difficult to find somebody that you give information to and they can take it and get you and use it for what you are looking for and hearing what you're saying.
Right.
So
John, let me pivot to you on that one because, you coach people from a young adolescent age, all the way up, right? And so understanding, how to communicate and what the best way to communicate with someone, especially like what Doreen is saying, right? Where she's, tried a couple of things with a couple of people and they found they weren't listening to what she was looking for. How did you, receive that and then give her confidence that you'd be the person to take her to the next level?
Well, the very first thing I think that connected the two of us is I told her I take my job very much like a doctor should take theirs, and she's an ER nurse.
No, OR.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And
that's a difference.
Immediately she looks, she gives me this inquisitive look, and I took her look more as a challenge. Like, really? You can do that? I don't think you can do that.
Okay.
And that's just my nature. There's a difference between hearing and listening. Mm-hmm. And when you do listen, you can take their words for what they're worth at face value. Nothing deeper, nothing sinister, and literally put a plan together or at least a suggestion and say, okay, this is what you want, this is what you want to go for, do whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I think you ought to try this.
Okay.
And bedside manner, I'm not concerned about because I pretty much get along with everybody, at least I hope so. Mm-hmm. But it was more, like she said, listening to what her why story is. Why does she play golf? Why does she want to improve? Right. Why is she here?
Right.
Why does she keep coming back?
Right.
But that's truly what it's about to me, and I think that's what had us click immediately, is that I could prove to her I could listen, and that I was listening. And I think that's really key, whether you're coaching someone golf, coaching someone in life, business, it doesn't matter. You're listening, because if you're not listening, nothing gets done. Right.
So on the heels of that, Doreen, you said you were from Cape Cod, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's not here in Central Florida where John is. How do you guys communicate, and how has that been beneficial to your coaching experience?
Mostly by email.
Okay.
Phone if necessary. Okay. I think in the first year or two, I might have called him once or twice and said, I'm having a little problem with blah, blah, blah. What do you suggest?
Okay.
So,
have you ever called them on the course?
No.
Okay.
That's not allowed.
No?
Well, no, I would hope she wouldn't, because if she's calling me on the course, she's in a panic.
I got bigger problems.
You don't want to be in a panic.
Right.
No.
Right.
I'll call him after.
Sure.
In a panic.
Sure. No, I'm joking, but just to know that you're able to communicate with him, pretty quickly or whenever that you need to. So
very responsive.
Your best mode of communication, you feel like, is more email, because it sounds like you guys may not talk on the phone as much, but it sounds like written communication back and forth seems to work really well for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the things unique about Doreen is she actually has somebody in her area that she'll go to. What's the term you put?
Tweaks.
Little tweaks.
Okay.
Because, what I tend to do is what John, so I'm great. Everything's working like clockwork when I'm with him. I can 90% of the time do it on the course. Okay. Would you say that?
That's pretty good.
Fair assessment?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But what happens when I get out on the course without him and he's not in my back pocket or on my right hip telling me this, I tend to go a little too far this way or that way. You know what I'm saying?
Would you say, like, are you falling into like a habit, would you say, or like a known?
No, it's just that I'm
comfortable
trying
habit?
to incorporate the new techniques that I've learned.
Okay.
And so I'm not quite, I don't have it set in my head 100% yet.
Sure.
So I tend to go a little too far this way.
Sure.
And what Jen does is kind of reel me back. She is awesome because, like John, she reels me in and says, just hang in a second.
Okay.
She reinforces everything. I don't know how I got so lucky to find two people like that. So
I think the big thing is both of us respect you as a person first, a golfer second.
Yeah.
But then we're also respecting the information we're providing each other, even though I've never talked to Jen. But what's funny is I feel like I do. Whether she's texting me or calling me, hey, what about this, what about that? One of the first things I'll ask, especially in the middle of the summer, is what's Jen telling? And you've even told me a couple of times, hey, what's John telling you when you get back?
Yeah.
And that's, again, listening, but it's being respectful with listening. It's because at the end of the day, it's about Doreen's golf. It's not about me as a coach.
Right.
It's not about Jen as a coach.
Right.
It's worked out to your favor
Very much
tremendously.
So that's an interesting dynamic, though, because typically, you'd hear someone who's just going to work with only one person as a voice, right? So that way you don't either have conflicting or multiple voices, kind of telling you, even if it is slightly similar things, but to be able to, one, when you're back at home, have someone who's helping you with your tweaks, and then when you're able to visit here and visit with John, he's able to continue to, and throughout that, but continue to reinforce those things, if not introduce those things, and those two, those two people will be able to work in tandem.
He's the foundation.
Right.
These are the building blocks, and she just kind of helps me keep them in the right place.
Got it. That's fantastic.
It's
Which
awesome.
means she's communicating well.
Right.
And that has a lot to do with not only her success, but my success as a coach.
Right.
If I'm not getting exactly what she's wanting, if I'm not getting that, I'm sort of digging through the weeds trying to find out what it is.
Right. Okay. So follow up on that one then. Another follow up, right? Where do you have any, or have you noticed any, unique coaching patterns or routines or just messages even that John has been able to give to you that with everyone that you've worked with prior to him, that you hold on to dearly, or rings in your mind first when you think of maybe your performance or maybe how you approach, or even just when you reach a plateau?
I would say pretty much going, let's this is the basic, let's start again there. I mean, yes, you are progressed to that point, but sometimes you need to be, like I said, reeled back and say, you're getting a little out of focus here, this is where we need to be. So let's take a step back, let's start again from the beginning, and just like stalk.
Sounds like more like getting back to a foundation.
Right.
Okay. Where do you see some differences in terms of what you got at the very, very beginning, and then what kind of keeps you going back now?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, right? And maybe.
Last week, that's a loaded question.
Okay, talk about it, yeah.
No, so this year we started a little differently than we usually do.
Okay.
So the first day, I usually do 3 days. Most times I do them 3 in a row. One year I was either 1 or 2 skip a day and then the third, or whether it was 1 skip a day 2, I don't remember. But
okay.
Anyway, this year was different. I told him what the issues were that I was having, and he told me that he had been thinking about doing this change in routine, and was I up for that? And I'm like, yeah, actually I really like that. It sounds good. So rather than coming straight to the range to just start doing drills, he took me out on the course and we played a few holes just to kind of see if what I'm telling him jives with what he's seeing, so that we know where we want to proceed from there.
Yeah.
Which it all did.
It did. I loved it. It was awesome.
It all did, but at the same time, this is a laboratory here. She and I have always talked about that. You get a second chance.
Right.
You can change the formula kind of thing. Where out on the golf course, you get one chance only with every stroke.
Right.
So it's a completely different animal.
Atmosphere too.
An atmosphere, environment, and that can change a golfer. It can change their perspective, their tension levels, that kind of thing. So what's neat about everybody I coach is I do more out on the golf course, and it pays dividends when we come back here. We're not guessing, and we're using hard data that actually happens versus possibly fabricated data that, you know, this is what you can do without.
Sure. I'm going to come back to the data thing in just a second, but I kind of want to ask you, Doreen, you know, most golfers, I would almost want to say just about every golfer gets to a point where they hit a wall, right? And as much as we may love the game,
I've had those walls. Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
It's like I said earlier. I think I have this feeling where, like, I know I'm ready to make that move. I'm ready to break, if not all the time, more consistently, the next level. And that's where I want to be. I want to be on that next level. I just have just one more step to go.
Sure. That's when you showed up last week. That's exactly the conversation we had.
Yep.
Which was really poignant, because that plateau she's on is typical of most golfers. They get to this point based on practice schedule, based on beliefs and style, and they can see the next one, but they're failing to see the various steps to get there. And it's literally, okay, let's go back to the basics and make sure the basics are there so you can. But instead of trying to take this big leap of faith, here's the first step right there. Let's get there first. Yeah. And let's really ingrain it. Let's really do something with it. And her visit last week was absolutely that and more.
Okay.
Am I remiss by saying you know not only where the plateau is, but you know how to get there?
I do. I know exactly where the plateau is, and I know exactly what I need to do to get there. So that's my mission when I get home, is to put the time in on the range, on the putting and chipping greens, and get my practice in, because practice makes permanent.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's not perfect.
Right. It does make permanent, right? So now, John, when you think and you hear what Doreen is saying about, you know, the differences that she's seen, the things that she comes back to as foundations, you know, how do you relate that to your approach, you know, to her, you know, week after week or time after time?
Well, we're always very condensed and very intense when she's here, because she's only here for a certain amount of time. I can't set my date reminders by her most of the time.
Most of the time.
And with that said, we're communicating prior. Here's my season last year. I did X. I want to accomplish Y. So this is sort of floating around in my brain until I can actually see her. And then once she's here and getting all, I call it baselining. What are you doing right now? And then we compare that to where she wants to go. It's a fairly easy conversation, because she's already informed me, and she does a really, really good job of it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, let's not get overly complicated with this. Let's just simplify it, take it one step at a time. What's neat about Doreen, she's educated enough about the golf swing where she will stop me and go, well, wait a minute. And we have these discussions about her, wait a minute. But at the same time, she'll also come back very much like a tour player and go, wait a minute, that's not me. Let's say, you know, this is me here, not somebody else. And she says it in a really kind way, but we work it out. And most of the time, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not so much feeling so much as the education level is increasing, and it's more about wrapping your arms around it cerebrally, so you can feel it more kinematically.
I think that's also, you know, remarkable to say too, right? Where, you know, you can still take coaching in some direction, or some suggestions, I should say, but then also still play that to your core and say, that may not be me. I can see where you're coming from, right? But I don't think that's me. I don't think that's going to work. I may not be able to adapt to that, or that and it doesn't feel comfortable enough.
Yeah, but I mean, I think those moments have been few and far between, because he pretty much gets me. He knows what I'm capable of and where I'm. My AC, what is it?
ADD.
And what's the other one?
ADHD?
No. Obsessive compulsive disorder.
Ah, okay,
So
okay.
everything has to be, sure. It's okay, I know. You can tell me. Everything has to be now. I want to see results now. I want everything yesterday. And I'm
Right.
trying to get myself out of that.
Okay.
And
That's most golfers.
I would imagine, yeah.
yeah, for the most part. I mean, I've met a few people where it's like, yeah, I don't care. I'm just here to have fun, and I don't care how how I hit the ball, where it goes, and it's like, yeah, that for me is not fun.
Right.
For me, fun is down, on the green, in the hole.
Right, right.
Yeah, but you're now having fun
Yes.
doing what you need to do to make that happen.
Right.
And I think
And
that was the biggest plateau you scaled.
I think that, yeah, because I didn't have enough up until this time. I was still lacking some of the information as to how to get there, and now I have that in my back pocket and I can pull it out.
So you mentioned something there, and I kind of wanted to tap into that for a second, where you talked about, you mentioned about having fun.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you, passion and fun. It sounds like you have a lot of passion for the game.
Love this game.
See.
This is my zen.
See.
This is my zen. As frustrating it is, to me sometimes this is my zen. This is what I would rather be doing than just about anything else on earth.
Got it.
Other than my grandchildren.
Yeah, right, sure, because they're number one. We know
They're
that.
number
right?
one.
We talked about that. Yeah, indeed. Okay, so then let me come back to what John was saying earlier. And John, I'm probably going to set this up with you, and I'll let Doreen kind of fill in the gap there. But we know that you have a lot of different technology gear, a lot of different devices that you can use to help analyze your players and your students, and see with data what they're saying and then what actually is happening. How do you utilize those or leverage those with Doreen?
So everybody's different.
Right.
And again, going back to medical and that kind of thing, she's in an OR. She's looking at a lot of things.
Right.
She's got her hands deep into somebody's whatever at the time. So she's, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not necessarily a numbers person, you understand it, but it's not the basis to how you get things done.
No.
It's more visual. Having and presenting the numbers to her, whether it's flight scope, body track, she's really taken to that more so this time around than any other time. Not because she's that much more educated or experienced. I think it's more inquisitiveness this time around than anything else. But it was only, pardon the way I'm going to say it, was spoon fed. It was only to the point where this applies to you because, and let me take care of that. But we were constantly going back to video because she is visual.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, did you feel that? Yes, I did. Well, I got it here on video. Let's look at it. Let's compare it.
Sure.
And let her have the aha moment without me describing it.
I had a few of those.
Yeah. At the same time as she does that, then am I able to say, hey, whatever number we're working on, look at what it did to this number. And I take care of that. She doesn't have to worry about it. Occasionally last week it was like, what do you think? Is the number better? I'm like, I think you can do it better.
Okay.
I think you can do it. Let's not worry about the number. That's not you.
Right.
Let me worry about
Right.
it. Kind of thing.
Okay. You kind of leaned up for a little bit there, and it sounded like you had a couple of aha moments.
I've had a few aha moments.
Can you talk about one that sticks out the most?
Yeah, my grip and my arms.
Say more.
Yeah, because I have a tendency to do what I call T-Rex or alligator, whatever, but it's this. I pull everything, I pull it in,
The elbows.
and I end up turning, everything kind of goes with my top that way, so everything's that way. Now I've got the feeling better that my grip needs to be a certain way, my arms need to be a certain way, and I need to let the club swing or let the club do the work for that. I can't do it with my upper body this way. It's not going to work.
Right.
I got to let it fly.
So I'm gonna come back to what you said earlier, right? You used to play tennis. Do you feel like that's something that you had to pull away from?
Yes, because in tennis you want the ball, you want the racket out, but you need a little bit of leverage to and it's a little bit different also in the fact that when you're hitting the ball, this ball is coming at you, so
You got to have some
Ball.
reinforcement behind that swing
Exactly.
to be able to send that back.
Yeah.
Right?
Paying attention to the ball
And direction.
the racket,
Yeah.
where in golf everybody wants to pay attention to the club and the ball
Right.
sitting there still.
Right.
Action versus reaction.
Right.
When you're reacting, there's no time to think. In golf, there's
Too much
umpteen
sometimes.
Yeah,
Could be, right?
way too much.
Right.
And
Yeah.
what
The longer-
that spurs on is, how do I fix this? Versus, hey, am I set up to allow it to fix itself?
Right.
But she said something really key. Feel.
Yeah.
She felt it for the first time.
Okay.
She knew she was doing it. We had taken her through some other things in the past, and she felt it. But this time was that aha moment.
Right.
And I'm not going to say it's trial by error. To a certain extent it is. But she wasn't ready to feel it until this time, is the way I'd say it. She
Right.
progressed to the point where she knew something was missing. She could see it. She could identify it. But she had never, ever felt it.
Sure.
But she was ready to feel it.
Yeah.
Right.
Where in previous times visiting,
There were other little things we were working on.
but we were also talking about and trying to deal with
Right.
these other things. And even though you would see it, you still could not feel it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Would you feel like that moment was like a breakthrough? Like at this moment now, I can truly value
Yes,
this.
because
this
because
achievement
now
or
when I
this-
get out there on the course and I'm trying to make a hit, it's like it's not how far can I go, it's how can I make a good hit.
Right.
And that is the difference.
Okay.
Make a good hit, the distance will take care of itself.
Right. Okay. I have just a few more questions, but this has been really great. I've been learning a lot, and I think our viewers are really enjoying this as well. So, Doreen, when we think about how long you've been in the sport, right, and all your progressions, where do you see yourself in the future?
I'd like to say I'd like to be on the senior tour, but that's not a reality that's going to happen.
Why not? Everything.
No, I would be very happy if I was able to do some of the lower handicapped tournaments
Okay.
in my area.
Have you already, or have
No.
you done a few? Okay.
No, my handicap's still too high for most of them.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's definitely come down. I mean, I think, all right, so give or take roundabout,
You
probably
started-
halved my handicap since I've been seeing
You started
John.
with me and you were 30, 34.
30, yeah.
Somewhere there, and you're what, 16?
I'm
something?
16.
Okay.
16 point something.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Okay.
and it fluctuates, 16, 18, 16, 17, 18, but right in that ballpark.
Okay.
For the most, and I've been good with that for a long time, but I want the next.
Yeah.
And that's the next challenge for her. We
Yeah.
talked about it extensively during 3 days. Hey, what tournament is best for you? What challenge, what competition is best for you? Where do you see yourself having just some success, and what's that measurement of success? It's not always winning it. It's just going out and playing the first one's a big success.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would thrill me to no end.
And that was my follow-up with you, John. Is like, knowing that, right? I would imagine even still with some of your coaching, you still have that in the back of your mind in terms of what some of their bigger goals would be, and working towards that nonetheless. Maybe that she doesn't know, you're not physically, like forcing that or reinforcing that like every time, saying like, hey, this goal we're working towards, but like in the back of your mind, maybe you're still trying to, work her towards that.
It's always trying to stay one step ahead of my client from that standpoint of view, and just not anticipating or assuming. So assuming can be very, very dangerous.
Right.
Listening, understanding life priorities, how golf fits in, and then when somebody's wanting to be that competitive and up the challenge, in her case, hey, just going to play a tournament's a big challenge because of time and grandkids and everything else.
Sure.
But let's make sure when she goes, she's prepared for the experience.
Right.
And then if she enjoys it or gets frustrated with it, there's time to talk about it. It's not necessarily adjusting physically so much as, hey, how do we prep better mentally?
Right.
So you'll go back out and have fun with it.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about having fun.
Indeed.
You may be nervous, shaking like a leaf
Right.
the first time out, but are you having fun shaking like a leaf?
Oh, yeah.
That's how it should be. My last question for you: if you came across someone who hasn't come across a coach yet, who's kind of hit a plateau, or maybe with some walls, with their game, considering, you know, what you've learned with John and how you've grown with John, you know, how would you explain to them that it's time for them to find a coach?
I just tell them, get your butt down there. If you've got the resources and the time, there's nothing better you can do for your game.
She doesn't mess around.
I don't mess around.
Indeed.
There's no sugar coating it.
No.
Okay.
It's just like I mean, you may, if you can find somebody around where you live, that's fine. But if things aren't working out for you, you need to find somebody who's going to get you to where you want to be. That's the guy to do it.
Right. That's fantastic to hear. Thank you so much, Doreen, for your time.
No problem.
Really appreciate you being here today.
It's been fun.
Indeed. That's how it should be.